People often say the British monarchy doesn't erase its secrets, it archives them. Hidden behind the royal ceremonies, polished speeches, and centuries of tradition, there has always been another layer to palace life, a quieter layer, one built on whispered relationships, private alliances, elite introductions, and stories that allegedly were never meant to escape beyond royal corridors. For generations, the monarchy survived because it controlled the image the public was allowed to see. But in 2026, many started questioning whether that image itself had been carefully manufactured from the very beginning, because suddenly, old controversies started resurfacing all at once. Forgotten photographs began circulating online again. Past interviews were analyzed frame by frame. Awkward royal moments that once seemed insignificant suddenly felt loaded with hidden tension. And according to rumors quietly spreading through royal circles, one of the most controversial theories involving Meghan Markle, Prince Harry, Sarah Ferguson, and Prince Andrew may have reopened in a way the palace allegedly never expected. What unsettles people most is that the speculation doesn't revolve around one isolated scandal. It revolves around connections, elite connections, private social circles, overlapping environments that critics believe may have existed long before the public was introduced to Harry and Meghan's famous romance story. At first, most people dismissed the entire conversation as another exaggerated internet conspiracy. But then online investigators started revisiting timelines. And once those timelines began overlapping with luxury events, exclusive guest lists, and rumored introductions tied to aristocratic circles, the official narrative suddenly felt far more complicated than it once did. Looking back now, some royal watchers believe the fairy tale story appears almost too polished. The blind date, the outsider meets prince narrative, the idea that Meghan allegedly knew very little about royal life before meeting Harry. At the time, almost nobody questioned it, but years later, people started wondering whether certain elite networks may have crossed paths much earlier than publicly acknowledged. That's when discussions surrounding Soho House started reappearing online. Luxury clubs, celebrity social environments, Mediterranean travel circles, private networking spaces where royals, billionaires, aristocrats, media executives, and powerful insiders reportedly interacted far away from public attention. And according to some commentators, that overlap is what allegedly created quiet panic behind palace walls. Because the monarchy has always depended on one thing above all else, public perception, not necessarily truth perception. The institution survives because people believe in the mythology surrounding it, the dignity, the distance. The illusion that this royal family exists above the chaos surrounding celebrity culture, political influence, and elite social excess. But what happens if those worlds were never truly separate? That question alone reportedly changed the tone of conversations happening around the palace. And then people started revisiting old tensions involving Prince Andrew. For years, rumors circulated about strained dynamics between Andrew and Harry, though very little was ever publicly clarified. Some royal commentators now believe those tensions may carry a darker emotional context than previously understood. Not because anything has been proven, but because the timing of certain rumors allegedly overlaps with periods that continue haunting the monarchy even today. Looking back now, Harry's anger toward the institution also feels different to some observers. At the time, many assumed it was simply frustration with the media, but critics now wonder whether his resentment appeared deeper, more personal, almost emotionally suffocating, as though he was trapped between loyalty to his family and fear of something larger happening beneath the surface. And what makes this psychologically gripping is the possibility that Harry himself may have struggled to separate truth from manipulation. Some insiders quietly speculate that years of rumors, palace pressure, media warfare, and hidden tensions may have emotionally isolated him long before the public witnessed the royal fallout. Because once trust inside an institution begins collapsing, every interaction starts feeling suspicious. Every silence feels intentional. Every carefully worded statement starts sounding rehearsed. That's why people began re-examining moments that once looked harmless. Body language during interviews, William's cold public distance, Meghan's visible discomfort during royal appearances, Harry's increasingly tense expressions. At the time, these moments seemed ordinary, but in 2026, critics began interpreting them through a far darker lens. And then things allegedly became even more unsettling, because whispers started emerging about rumored archived files, private travel records, and hidden social connections tied to elite gatherings from the early 2000s. None of it has been publicly verified. That's important. But according to online discussions, the speculation alone was enough to reportedly create anxiety inside royal media circles. Because once the public starts suspecting an institution may have hidden information, the damage becomes psychological. People stop trusting the official version of events, and once that happens, every old royal moment suddenly feels questionable. Even Harry and Meghan's departure from royal duties now appears different to some observers. What once looked like rebellion now feels, to critics, more like escape. What makes this entire situation feel so unsettling isn't necessarily the rumors themselves. It's the growing reinterpretation of everything people thought they already understood. And according to some royal observers, that reinterpretation may be exactly what the monarchy fears most, because the royal family has never survived on ceremony alone. It survives on perception, on emotional loyalty, on the carefully protected belief that the institution is permanent, disciplined, and always in control. For generations, Buckingham Palace projected an image of stability so powerful that most people never questioned what existed behind the polished appearances, public smiles, and carefully staged royal moments. But now, many believe those once solid foundations are beginning to crack in full public view. Not through one scandal, not through one interview, not through one headline, but through years of mounting contradictions, fractured relationships, and whispers that refuse to disappear. And that's exactly why attention keeps circling back towards Sarah Ferguson. Unlike journalists, commentators, or outside critics, Ferguson spent decades inside the royal machine itself. She witnessed royal controversies from behind palace gates. She lived through public humiliation, media warfare, internal family tensions, and the silent political dynamics most outsiders never truly see. She understands how royal narratives are shaped, how stories are contained, how damage is managed long before the public ever senses something is wrong. Which is why recent speculation surrounding alleged private conversations, rumored memoir discussions, and quiet insider tensions has started generating intense curiosity online. Because according to whispers circulating among royal commentators, some believe Sarah Ferguson may no longer feel the same obligation to protect the institution the way she once did. And if that possibility is even partially true, palace insiders reportedly understand how dangerous that could become. Not because of one explosive revelation, but because of what it could inspire afterward. Because once insiders begin speaking more openly, once former allies stop protecting old systems, once overlapping timelines and elite social connections start being re-examined publicly, the entire royal narrative becomes vulnerable to reinterpretation. That's where the real fear reportedly begins. The monarchy has survived scandals before. Affairs, resignations, public embarrassment, family betrayals. History proves the institution can absorb controversy when the public still believes the foundation itself remains strong. But according to some analysts, what the palace faces now may be something much harder to contain, a slow collapse of trust. And trust is different from scandal. Scandal creates headlines. Distrust changes perception forever. Because once the public begins questioning whether they were shown the complete picture all along, every royal appearance starts being viewed differently. Every interview gets reanalyzed. Every carefully crafted narrative suddenly feels less like tradition and more like image management. That shift alone can permanently damage institutions built almost entirely on symbolism. And perhaps that's why this story now feels so much darker than previous royal controversies. It's no longer just about isolated rumors. It's about uncertainty itself. People no longer seem sure where the official narrative ends and where hidden realities might begin. The lines feel blurred. Public conversations become filled with speculation, reinterpretation, and endless attempts to connect scattered pieces together. And in the modern digital era, uncertainty spreads faster than facts ever could. Every resurfaced photograph becomes evidence. Every old connection becomes suspicious. Every silence becomes interpreted as strategy. That atmosphere creates something incredibly difficult for any institution to control, especially one built on image. Because monarchies rely heavily on mystique, on emotional storytelling, on the illusion that the system remains larger than the chaos surrounding it. But according to many royal watchers, that illusion has started weakening. What once looked untouchable now appears emotionally fragile beneath the surface.